Open a modern bathroom cabinet today and it can feel less like a cleaning space and more like a small store shelf. There may be glass cleaner, bathroom spray, disinfecting wipes, toilet cleaner, shower spray, grout cleaner, hand soap, body wash, face wash, stain remover, air freshener, and 3 bottles you forgot you even bought. Some are half empty, some are almost full because they never worked quite the way the label promised. Some were purchased because the old bottle ran out, then found again 2 weeks later behind the towels. Now compare that to a 1950s bathroom shelf or a kitchen sink in a small post-war home. There might be 1 bar of soap in a dish, not fancy, not surrounded by bright plastic bottles. Just a simple bar, maybe worn down at the edges, sitting where everyone could reach it. And that 1 bar did more than wash hands. It touched collars before laundry day. It cleaned a child's muddy fingers before supper. It helped scrub a sink, freshen a washcloth, loosen grime from a basin, and deal with small messes before they grew into big chores. A housewife in the 1950s did not look at that bar as a backup plan. She looked at it as one of the basic tools of keeping a home running. If you like remembering the old household wisdom that made simple things work hard, subscribe before we go any further. These small routines are the kind of knowledge families use to pass across a sink, a washboard, or a kitchen table. The reason that bar of soap mattered was not because women had no choices at all. Stores still sold cleaning products. There were powders, polishes, bleaches, ammonia, and washing soda, scouring cleansers and laundry soaps. But the average home was not built around endless product categories the way many homes are now. A woman did not need a separate bottle for every fingerprint, stain, spill, odor, and surface. She had a smaller group of tools, and she learned what each one could do. That is the part many people miss. The 1950s housewife did not trust 1 bar of soap because she believed soap was magical. She trusted it because she used it constantly. She knew how much water to add. She knew when to rub the cloth directly against the bar. She knew when to make a little lather, when to rinse quickly, and when to scrub harder, and when to leave something alone until laundry day. That knowledge lived in her hands. Today, cleaning often starts with a question: which product should I use? Back then, cleaning often started with action. A child came in with dirty hands, and the bar was there. A husband's shirt collar showed a dark ring, and the bar was rubbed along the fabric before it went into the wash. A sink looked dull after a busy morning, and a damp cloth with soap could bring it back. A washcloth smelled stale, and soap plus hot water gave it a second life before it went to the laundry pile. The bar stayed visible because the work was visible. It did not hide under the sink like a special cleaner waiting for a special emergency. It sat out in the open, used many times a day. That small detail changed the rhythm of the house. A visible tool gets used before a mess becomes dramatic. A hidden product gets pulled out when the mess already feels like a job. That difference helped shape the way 1950s women handled their homes. They were trained, often from childhood, to see small cleaning moments as part of ordinary movement. Wash your hands, rinse the sink, rub the stain, wipe the edge, hang the cloth, put the soap back in the dish. None of it needed a big announcement. It was just how a house stayed in order. Did your mother or grandmother keep a plain bar of soap by every sink? For many families, that little soap dish was not decoration. It was a workstation. The bathroom especially shows how much has changed. Today, many bathrooms are full of products meant to solve problems after they build up. Soap scum remover, hard water spray, tile cleaner, mildew treatment, drain freshener, mirror cleaner, counter spray. Each one has a job, and some do that job well. But the cabinet itself can become another problem. It fills, it leaks, it gathers dust. It creates choices. It makes a person feel prepared, even when the daily habit is missing. In a 1950s bathroom, the room itself was often smaller. There was less storage, less counter space, and fewer places to hide clutter. That could be inconvenient, but it also created a kind of discipline. If there was no giant cabinet, there was no room to collect 10 bottles that did almost the same thing. If the sink was small, it had to be wiped often. If the soap dish was the main tool, it had to stay clean enough to use. The bar of soap sat at the center of that small discipline. It was used on skin, but it also taught a household habit: deal with the ordinary dirt while it is still ordinary. This mattered because much of home cleaning is not about rare disasters. It is about the daily film that slowly appears on the sink, the collar that slowly darkens, the fingerprints near the door, the sticky mark on the counter, the cloudy spot near the faucet. A 1950s woman often attacked those things early because her tools were close and familiar. Modern cleaning, strangely, can make people wait. The product is under the sink. The gloves are somewhere else. The special spray is almost empty. The surface needs a different bottle. The label says wait 10 minutes. The whole thing becomes a task, so the task gets delayed. One bar of soap did not make the home perfect, but it lowered the barrier to action. A damp cloth, warm water, and a bar within reach were enough to begin. And beginning early is half of what kept older homes from feeling out of control. There was also a thrift lesson built into that bar. A housewife did not throw it away when it became small. The thin leftover pieces could be pressed together, saved in a dish, dropped into hot water for washing, or used for rougher jobs. Nothing about that bar encouraged waste. It got smaller because it was working. Modern bottles do not always teach that same lesson. They can be bought because they smell nice, because the label looks new, because the ad promises speed, or because a person feels behind and wants help. That feeling is very human, but it can leave a cabinet full of products and a home that still depends on the same old thing, someone noticing the mess and handling it. That is why the bar of soap is such a powerful object. It reminds us that cleaning used to be less about collecting solutions and more about repeating small actions. The 1950s home was not easier in every way. Many women carried enormous pressure to keep everything presentable, and much of that work was expected rather than praised. But inside that pressure were real skills. Women learned how to stretch tools, read fabrics, manage timing, and keep surfaces from getting ahead of them. The bar of soap was part of that skill set because it could move from the body to the basin, from the basin to the laundry, from the laundry back to the sink. It connected the rooms. A cabinet full of cleaners separates chores into categories: bathroom, kitchen, laundry, glass, tile, fabric, odor. A bar of soap moved through the house with the woman using it. It belonged wherever water, cloth, and a little effort could solve the problem. That is why older homes could feel cared for, even with fewer supplies. The supplies were not doing all the work. The routine was. And nowhere did that routine show itself more clearly than at the kitchen sink, where soap was not just something used after the work was done. It was part of how the work moved from one meal, one mess, and one pair of hands into the next. At the kitchen sink, a bar of soap was not sitting there for decoration. It was part of the day's rhythm. Breakfast dishes came through the day. A child's hands came through. A clean dishcloth came through as well. A sticky spot on the counter came through. The same small tool kept returning to the same place, doing one quiet job after another. That is why 1950s housewives trusted it so much. They were not using soap only when something looked terrible. They were using it before things got terrible. A little grease on the fingers, a smudge on the sink edge, a mark on an apron, a cloudy ring around the faucet. Those were handled early. The bar was close, the cloth was close, and the habit was already built into the movement of the day. Modern cleaning often waits until a problem has a name. Grease buildup, soap scum, fabric stain, counter residue, odor, hard water. Once the problem has a name, it gets a product. But older household systems worked differently. They treated small messes while they were still small enough to be boring. That may sound simple, but it changed everything. A 1950s housewife did not wait for the kitchen to become dirty before she cleaned. She cleaned while cooking. She cleaned while clearing. She cleaned while waiting for water to boil or coffee to finish. The bar of soap helped because it did not require a plan. She could rub it on a cloth, work up a little lather, wipe the area, rinse, and keep moving. This was not glamorous work. It was not the kind of thing anyone praised at the dinner table. But it created the feeling that the house was under control. The counter stayed clear because small spills were not allowed to sit all day. The sink stayed usable because it was rinsed again and again. The dishcloth stayed fresher because it was washed, wrung, and hung instead of left in a wet pile. A shirt collar had a better chance in the laundry because someone rubbed soap into it before the stain settled deep into the fibers. That was the system, not one big cleaning day trying to rescue the whole house. Not a dozen bottles waiting for a weekend reset. Just repeated contact between hand, soap, water, cloth, and surface. When did cleaning start feeling like something you had to shop for? That question matters because the old way depended more on skill than selection. A woman did not stand in front of a cabinet wondering which label matched the mess. She knew the first move. Try soap and water. If that was not enough, then use the stronger thing. Today, many people begin with the stronger thing. Not because they are careless, but because modern cleaning products have trained us to think every surface needs a special answer. The bathroom has its own spray, the kitchen has its own spray. The stovetop has its own formula, the floor has its own bottle. Even the air has its own scent. The result is strange. We have more cleaning products than ever, yet cleaning can feel more confusing. A 1950s housewife had less confusion because her tools had a clear order. Soap and water came first, hot water came next. A brush, rag, or scrub pad added force. Stronger cleaners were saved for jobs that truly needed them. That order protected the home from waste, but it also protected the woman from decision fatigue. She did not need to turn every crumb into a product choice. The habit also made cleaning cheaper. One bar could serve the whole family in many small ways. A sliver of soap could still be useful. A bar that was too small for the bath could be used at the laundry sink. Small pieces could be saved rather than tossed. Even the last scraps had value because the household mindset was built around use, not replacement. That thrift was not only about money, it was about respect for supplies. Many women in the 1950s had lived through the Depression years, wartime shortages, rationing, or parents who remembered both. Waste felt wrong in a way that is hard to explain to someone raised in an age of endless refills and disposable wipes. A bottle could be replaced, but a habit of waste was harder to correct. Soap fit that older mindset. It disappeared slowly. You could see it getting smaller. You knew exactly how much was left. There was no mystery about whether the pump was clogged, whether the spray nozzle had broken, or whether the bottle still had enough for one more cleaning. The bar told the truth by its size. That kind of honesty made it dependable. There is also something important about touch. A bar of soap required contact. The woman using it had to feel the cloth, the stain, the slipperiness, the grit, the change in texture as the dirt lifted. That may seem old-fashioned, but it taught judgment. She learned when a collar needed more rubbing. She learned when a sink was clean enough. She learned when a cloth had been rinsed properly. Modern sprays can separate the hand from the work. Spray, wait, wipe, toss. That can be useful, especially for sanitation or heavy cleaning. But when every chore becomes distant and disposable, the home loses some of the skill that used to live in the body. A woman who cleaned by touch noticed things early. She felt the sticky patch. She saw the dullness in the basin. She smelled the sour dishcloth. She caught the stain before the wash. She handled it because the tool was already there. That is why one bar of soap could seem more powerful than a cabinet full of cleaners. It was backed by timing. Soap used late is just soap. Soap used early becomes prevention. The same idea showed up in laundry. Before automatic machines became common in every home, women were used to treating clothes with attention. A collar was not just tossed into the wash and hoped for the best. It might be dampened, rubbed with soap, worked between the fingers and set aside. Cuffs, underarms, children's socks, kitchen towels, all of them could get this small treatment before the real washing began. The bar of soap helped the housewife read the laundry before the machine did. That habit saved clothes. It kept stains from becoming permanent. It stretched garments longer, which mattered in homes where clothing budgets were watched carefully. A dress, shirt, apron, or school blouse was not casually replaced because of one mark. You tried to save it first. Modern stain removers are useful, but they can also make us forget the older principle: stains are easier when they are handled right away. The product matters less than the timing. The 1950s woman understood that because laundry was not invisible to her. It was a weekly event, sometimes a whole day event, and clothing care was part of household management. The bar of soap connected that management to everyday life. It could sit by the kitchen sink, then move to the laundry area, then return to the bathroom. It belonged wherever small dirt needed attention. That made it more than a cleaner. It was a reminder to act while the problem was still close. Advertising slowly weakened that confidence. Companies did not only sell new products, they sold doubt. Doubt that plain soap was enough. Doubt that old methods were modern. Doubt that a good housewife could rely on simple tools when newer formulas promised faster, brighter, fresher, safer, easier results. Some of those products really did help. Some were better suited to new materials, new appliances, and new expectations. But the message underneath was powerful. The old bar looked too plain to trust. A woman who once knew what to do with soap and water was encouraged to believe she needed a better answer. Over time, the cleaning cabinet grew. A bottle for shine, a bottle for germs, a bottle for scent, a bottle for glass, a bottle for tile, a bottle for the stove, a bottle for the floor. The home did not just gain products, it gained categories, and every new category made the simple bar seem smaller. But the old system was never about the bar alone. It was about what happened around it. The cloth hanging near the sink, the habit of rinsing after use, the quick rub on a stain, the morning wipe down, the evening reset, the refusal to let dirt settle long enough to become a Saturday project. That is what modern cabinets often cannot replace. A cabinet can hold supplies, but it cannot create rhythm by itself. It cannot notice the sink after breakfast. It cannot rub the collar before wash day. It cannot teach a child to wash up before supper. It cannot decide that a small mess should be handled now, while it is still easy. That was the housewife's work, and the bar of soap simply made the first move easy. This is why the old homes many people remember felt different. They were not always spotless. They were not free from dust, stains, or hard work, but they often had a steady sense of care. The same hands returned to the same places. The same tool solved the same small problems. The house was not waiting for a product haul. It was being managed in little moments. The real lesson is not that everyone should throw away every modern cleaner. Some jobs need stronger products. Some surfaces need special care. Some modern sanitation methods are there for good reasons. The lesson is that older women often knew the value of starting simple. Soap first, water first, cloth first, habit first. Without that rhythm, the bottles become proof of intention, not proof of care. And once companies learned how much people wanted that feeling of care, the cleaning aisle began to grow far beyond the sink, turning ordinary household confidence into something families were told they had to keep buying. The old cleaning shelf was not empty. A 1950s housewife still had supplies. She might have kept scouring powder for the sink, bleach for certain laundry loads, ammonia for tough jobs, wax or polish for floors, washing soda, a scrub brush, a bucket, rags, and a good stiff broom. The difference was not that older homes had only one thing. The difference was that most tools had a clear place, a clear purpose, and a clear limit. The bar of soap belonged to daily life. The stronger products belonged to heavier work. That order mattered. When a small mess appeared, the first answer was not always to buy something new. The first answer was to use what was already in the house: warm water, soap, a cloth, a little rubbing, a little patience. If that failed, then the next tool came out. Modern cleaning slowly reversed that order. The store shelf moved into the home. Instead of one or two dependable basics supported by stronger supplies, people began collecting bottles for every separate fear: germs, grease, odor, shine, stains, dullness, mildew, dust, streaks, and freshness. Each bottle promised relief. That promise was powerful because housework was never just about dirt. It was about judgment. A clean home told visitors, neighbors, husbands, children, and even the woman herself that the household was being cared for. So when companies sold a new cleaner, they were not only selling soap in a different form, they were selling confidence. The label seemed to say, "You are doing this right." That feeling was hard to resist. By the 1950s, advertising had become part of everyday home life. Magazines, radio, television commercials, grocery displays, and newspaper ads all showed women that a better home might be one purchase away. A brighter sink, a fresher bathroom, a whiter wash, a shinier floor, a kitchen that smelled clean before anyone even touched a cloth. Some of these new products were genuinely useful. Homes were changing, materials were changing, appliances were changing. More families had refrigerators, automatic washers, synthetic fabrics, plastic surfaces, linoleum, chrome, enamel, and modern bathrooms that needed different care than older homes. A good housewife had to learn new methods too, but the advertising did something deeper. It made older simplicity look unfinished. A plain bar of soap began to seem too ordinary, too slow, too old, too close to grandmother's way. The new bottle looked scientific, modern, and confident. It had a bright label, a clean scent, and words that made the old method feel weak. That is how a cleaning cabinet turns into a store shelf. Not all at once. One bottle at a time. First, a cleaner for the bathroom, then one for the kitchen, then one for glass, then one for floors, then one for furniture, then one for disinfecting, then one for scent, then one for stains, then one for the shower, then another version that promises to work faster. Before long, the cabinet is no longer a tool area. It is a collection of hopes. Hope that this bottle will make the tub easier. Hope that this spray will finally stop the smell. Hope that this formula will make the floor shine the way it did in the advertisement. Hope that buying the right cleaner will make the home feel under control again. But a cabinet full of hopes can still sit under a sink while the counter stays sticky. That is the hard truth older women understood in a practical way. A product cannot replace timing. It cannot replace attention. It cannot replace the habit of wiping something while it is fresh, rinsing a cloth after using it, or treating a stain before it dries into the fabric. The more specialized cleaners became, the more cleaning could feel like a separate event instead of a daily rhythm. You did not just wipe the sink. You waited until bathroom cleaning time. You did not just rub the collar. You waited until laundry day and hoped the stain remover worked. You did not just rinse the counter. You waited until the kitchen felt messy enough to deserve the spray. That waiting changed the emotional weight of housework. Small actions became bigger projects. A 1950s housewife often worked under unfair pressure, and no one should pretend that pressure was gentle. Many women were judged harshly by the state of their homes. They were expected to keep order without complaint, often with little help. But because they were inside the work every day, they also developed habits that kept problems from piling up. The bar of soap fit that world because it was humble and immediate. It did not need a slogan. It did not need a new scent every season. It did not need a commercial showing a woman smiling at a faucet. It simply waited by the sink, ready for use. That plainness was part of its strength. Would your home feel simpler if half the bottles disappeared? Not because modern products are bad, but because each bottle asks for space in your mind. You have to remember what it is for, where it is stored, whether it is safe for the surface, whether it needs gloves, whether it can mix with something else, whether it is almost empty, and whether you already bought a backup. The old bar asked one question: is there water nearby? That simplicity created speed, and speed in housekeeping often matters more than power. The quick wipe after breakfast, the fast rub on a shirt cuff, the washcloth rinsed before it turns sour, the sink cleaned before toothpaste hardens. These are not dramatic chores, but they stop dramatic chores from forming. Modern products often promise to save time after the mess is already big. The old soap habit saved time before the mess had a chance. The cleaning aisle also changed how people thought about smell. In many older homes, clean often meant absence, no sour cloth, no greasy dishwater, no stale laundry, no spoiled food, no heavy dust. Fresh air, hot water, sun-dried cloth, and plain soap carried their own quiet signal. Modern advertising taught households to expect clean to have a stronger scent. Lemon, pine, floral, ocean, rain, spring, lavender. Freshness became something sprayed into the air or left behind on a surface. That was not always harmful, but it shifted the meaning of clean from condition to sensation. A room could smell clean before it was truly cared for. A 1950s housewife would have understood the difference. She knew a perfumed room could still have a dirty sink. She knew a shiny label could still leave work undone. She knew the cloth mattered, the rinse mattered, the drying mattered, the putting away mattered. Soap was part of that chain. The bar was also honest about labor. It did not pretend that cleaning could happen without hands. It required someone to pick it up, wet it, rub it, rinse it, and return it to the dish. That may sound like a disadvantage, but it kept the person connected to the condition of the home. The more products promised effortless results, the easier it became to imagine that the right purchase could do what routine used to do. That is one of the quiet tragedies of modern housekeeping. People are not lazy. Many are overwhelmed, tired, working long hours, caring for families, and trying to keep up with homes filled with more objects than previous generations owned. So buying another cleaner can feel like taking control. It is a small, affordable decision in a life that feels crowded. But the bottle does not reduce the crowding if it only adds one more item under the sink. Older thrift habits resisted that. A 1950s housewife might cut spending not because she was trying to be charming or old-fashioned, but because the household budget required it. If one bar of soap could do 3 jobs, she let it do 3 jobs. If a rag could be washed, she washed it. If a soap sliver could be used again, she used it again. If a product was only for one rare task, it had to prove it deserved the space. Space was a form of discipline. Money was a form of discipline. Routine was a form of discipline. Together, they kept the cleaning shelf from becoming a dumping ground for good intentions. That does not mean every old method was safer, better, or kinder. Some products used in earlier decades were harsh. Some cleaning advice from the time would not be recommended today. Some women mixed things they should not have mixed, or used strong substances without the safety information we now have. The point is not to copy every old practice. The point is to notice the order of thinking. Start with the mildest useful tool. Use it early. Save the stronger thing for the job that truly needs it. That simple order is what the bar of soap represented. As modern homes gained more products, they sometimes lost that order. The cleaning cabinet became crowded, but the daily rhythm became weaker. The home gained more choices, but not always more peace. The person cleaning gained more labels to read, but not always more confidence. And confidence is really what this story is about. The 1950s housewife trusted the bar of soap because she trusted the routine around it. She knew where it was. She knew what it could do. She knew when it was enough. She knew when it was not enough. That last part matters. Trusting soap did not mean pretending it could solve everything. It meant having a starting point. Modern cleaning often lacks a starting point because there are too many possible starts. Should you spray first, wipe first, disinfect first, deodorize first, scrub first, buy a different product first? The old answer was calmer. Wash first, see what remains, then decide. That rhythm gave the housewife control before the cabinet ever opened. It made her less dependent on the newest promise and more dependent on her own eyes, hands, and judgment. The crowded cabinet tells a story about modern life. We keep buying tools because we feel behind. But sometimes the feeling of being behind comes from losing the small, repeated actions that once kept ordinary dirt from turning into a problem. That is why the plain bar still speaks so clearly. It sits there, almost too simple to notice, and reminds us that a home is not maintained by products alone. It is maintained by timing, limits, and repeated care. And when the noise of the cleaning aisle fades, that little bar by the sink still has one more lesson to teach. The old way was not about having less for the sake of less. It was about knowing what was enough. The lesson of the 1950s bar of soap is not that every modern cleaner should disappear. Some jobs need stronger products, some surfaces need special care, some messes call for disinfecting, stain treatment, or a cleaner made for one specific material. Modern homes are not the same as 1950s homes, and modern families are not living the same lives. But the old bar still teaches something that many crowded cabinets cannot. It teaches that the first answer does not always have to be more. More bottles, more scents, more sprays, more wipes, more specialty formulas, more storage, more choices, more shopping. Sometimes the first answer is closer than that. Warm water, a cloth, a simple soap. A few seconds before the mess hardens, dries, spreads, or becomes another job waiting for the weekend. That is what 1950s housewives understood so well. They were not waiting for the house to fall apart before they acted. They were catching things while they were still small. The dishcloth was rinsed before it turned sour. The sink was wiped before the film built up. The collar was rubbed before the stain settled. The child's hands were washed before dirt reached the table. The counter was cleared before clutter became scenery. None of those actions were dramatic, but together they created order. That is why one bar of soap could feel more useful than a cabinet full of cleaners. The bar was connected to timing. It was connected to habit. It was connected to hands that noticed what needed doing. A modern cleaner can be powerful, but it cannot notice for you. It cannot decide that the sink should be wiped right after breakfast. It cannot teach a child to wash up before eating. It cannot save a shirt collar if no one sees the stain until 3 days later. It cannot make a cluttered cabinet feel simple if that cabinet is already packed with products bought out of frustration. The old soap dish reminds us that home care begins before the big clean. It begins in the ordinary passing moments. A woman in the 1950s might walk through the kitchen and see the sink needed a quick rinse. She might rub a little soap onto a cloth and wipe the faucet while talking to a child. She might rinse the cloth, wring it tight, and hang it to dry. The whole action might take less than a minute. No one would applaud it. No one would even notice it unless it stopped happening. That is the hidden nature of housework. When it is done steadily, it disappears. The sink simply looks ready. The towel smells fresh. The counter is usable. The shirt comes out cleaner. The bathroom does not feel neglected. The home feels cared for, even if no one can name every small action that made it that way. The 1950s were not perfect, and it would be dishonest to pretend they were. Many women carried the full weight of the home with little help. Many had fewer choices, fewer rights, and less freedom than women have today. A clean house could be a source of pride, but it could also become a measure used against them. The same routines that made a home feel steady. These routines could also trap women, keeping them inside endless expectations. So the point is not to romanticize the pressure. The point is to respect the skill. Those women knew how to make simple tools work. They knew how to stretch a household budget. They knew how to keep supplies from becoming clutter. They knew that small daily action often beats a giant rescue clean. They knew that a home did not stay pleasant because someone bought the newest bottle. It stayed pleasant because someone kept returning to the sink, the cloth, the laundry, the counter, and the ordinary messes that come with living. That skill is still worth saving. A modern home can borrow the best part without bringing back the worst pressure. No one needs to live under the old rule that a woman's worth is measured by the shine of her sink. No one needs to pretend that every house should look ready for company every hour of the day. But there is freedom in having fewer things to manage. There is relief in knowing the first move. There is peace in a cabinet that does not spill out every time you open it. Maybe the old question is still useful. What is enough? Enough cleaner, enough scent, enough storage, enough backup bottles, enough promises. A 1950s housewife often had to ask that question because money and space required it. Today, many people have to ask it because modern life has become too crowded. The reason may be different, but the question still matters. What if the bathroom cabinet held only what you actually use? What if the kitchen sink had one simple tool ready for daily messes? What if the strongest products were saved for the jobs that truly need them? What if cleaning became less about preparing for a battle and more about keeping ordinary life from piling up? That is where the bar of soap becomes more than nostalgia. It becomes a symbol of trust. Not blind trust in the past, not trust that everything old was better. Trust in a smaller, steadier way of keeping a home. The bar says, start here. Start with the mild thing. Start while the mess is fresh. Start before you feel overwhelmed. Start with what is already in your hand. Then decide if you need more. That order can change the way a home feels, because when the first move is simple, you make it more often. When the tool is visible, you reach for it sooner. When the habit is repeated, the house requires fewer dramatic saves. And when the cabinet is not crowded with products you barely use, cleaning starts to feel less like a problem you have failed at, and more like a rhythm you can return to. That was the quiet strength behind the old soap dish. It gave the household a beginning, not a perfect answer, not a miracle, just a beginning that was cheap, familiar, and ready. And maybe that is what many modern homes are missing. Not another cleaner, not another label, not another scent that promises freshness, but a simple beginning that turns into a daily rhythm. If your mother or grandmother kept a bar of soap by the sink, you may remember how ordinary it looked. It did not seem special, it was just there, but that is exactly why it mattered. The most useful household tools are often the ones that do not call attention to themselves. They wait in the same place every day, ready to help before the mess becomes something bigger. A cabinet full of cleaners can make a person feel prepared. One bar of soap, used well, can make a person feel capable. That is a different kind of confidence. Powerful because someone used it every day,